All right, you guys, for whoever is out and about on this beautiful Saturday, there is a rally at Metro Hall. I'm going to let Erica explain.
Hi, y'all. This is Erica from the Party for Socialism and Liberation Louisville branch. We are here today on this beautiful Saturday in recognition of International Women's Day, or as we like to call it, International Working Women's Day, which is celebrated every year on March 8th. International Working Women's Day recognizes the history of over 100 years of working class women, men, and of all genders coming out in the streets and marching for equality, marching for the rights of the working class. And today, this year in 2022, we are putting the focus for this International Working Women's Day here on the struggle for reproductive justice. As many of you know, there is a great deal of fear that the Supreme Court, an unelected body of elite judges appointed by the last 3 or 4 presidents who have no relationship whatsoever to the working class, may be striking down Roe v. Wade, which was the legal decision which made abortion legal in the United States. The U.S. Congress has had the opportunity for nearly 50 years now to write abortion rights and reproductive justice rights into the law, and they have failed to do so. Just earlier this year, there was a law passed in the House, it failed in the Senate, called the Women's Health Protection Act. What that law would have done is encoded in the U.S. legal system the right that the U.S. Supreme Court cannot take away for an abortion that no state can abridge. That law failed by a margin of 48 to 52. And it is a stark emphasis of how undemocratic our government is. If the WHPA vote had happened along the lines of the preferences of the U.S. population, it would have passed by nearly 90%. Working class people know the importance of reproductive justice. We know because it's our lives that are at stake. When working class people are forced into pregnancies, or forced to deliver pregnancies, or forced to give up pregnancies to adoption and suffer the trauma of giving up to adoption, we know we suffer from that system. That's why we are out here today to fight for a multi-gender, multiracial, working class united movement in the streets to fight for reproductive rights, to fight for the working class, because we know that politicians in Washington and in Frankfurt do not give a am I allowed to say shit? Don't give a shit about us.
You can say whatever the fuck you want.
They don't give a shit about us. They don't give a shit about our rights and about our lives. That's why we are out here today. I exhort all of you to join us, to stand up for reproductive justice, to stand up for the control and autonomy of our bodies, because the people in Washington, the people in Frankfurt are not going to do so. Only the working class can defend the working class.
It is windy out here, but the message is clear. And I think one of the questions that people would ask is, and who don't understand how the law works, Roe v. Wade is a federal law. How can state governments, like, for instance, let's just use Texas, for example, institute laws that contradict the federal government? Explain that for us.
So this is a big problem with the way that Roe v. Wade was enacted, is that Roe v. Wade was not actually enacted as a law. It was a Supreme Court decision. And Supreme Court decisions simply rely on the Supreme Court not changing their mind later. There's no elected component to it. There's no permanence like you would see in a law where somebody has to vote to repeal it. The Supreme Court can simply change their mind later. Now, there's a tradition against doing so, but that tradition's been thrown out many times when it doesn't suit the ruling class. So what states like Texas and Mississippi and Kentucky have tried to do over the years is to pass these laws that they then hope will be taken up as challenge and taken up to the Supreme Court to repose the question of whether abortion is a constitutional right in the United States. And they're hoping, and they may in fact be right, that this particular Supreme Court, loaded with right-wing extremist judges, mainly appointed by the Trump and Bush administrations, will be more than happy to take the opportunity to completely wipe away that right that has been essential for the livelihoods of so many Americans for nearly 50 years now. That is what we're looking at.
I want you to stop and think about this for a minute. Roe v. Wade was enacted when I was a freshman in high school. I was 12. So I'm 62 now. That's a whole lot to take away from people and reflect for a moment, although you don't remember it, but reflect for a moment on the time before abortion was safe and legal.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. I was not alive for that, but I have listened to many of the brave feminist leaders who were part of that movement to expand reproductive rights before they were legalized. And it was terrifying. You had people, the thing that so many people talk about with abortion is that banning abortion does not ban abortion, doesn't stop abortions. It stops safe abortions, because people before Roe v. Wade still got abortions. Some estimates say at even higher rates than they do today, but they got them in back alley clinics, or God willing, if they were lucky, they managed to find a group of brave feminists who would do an abortion out of the kindness of their hearts pro bono. But even then, they weren't trained doctors. People sought these out however they could. In the modern day, you're going to see the same thing if people are suddenly denied the ability to access abortions in large swaths of the United States. You're going to see them fleeing to, some people, especially in the South, may go down to Mexico, where there are not as many regulations on these kinds of procedures. Those procedures may be more dangerous. You will see the rise of opportunistic clinics that don't need to be run by doctors because they're already illegal anyway, that are taking advantage of desperate young women, desperate people of marginalized genders to get their money, and they don't care what the consequences are because there's no regulation if it's all illegal anyway. So yeah, we do not want to see the United States return to that kind of medical anarchy, where people are basically forced to surrender their lives to somebody who they have no idea what their credentials or background are, simply so they can not be forced to carry out a 9-month pregnancy against their will. If they can, not to mention the fact that many people may have health risks to their pregnancies. Many people may be carrying the child of somebody who raped them, or maybe they just don't want to be pregnant, and that's valid, and that is a right that every American should have.
Erica, thank you for taking the time. This is going to start at 2 p.m.
Yeah.
And how long do you expect to be here?
I think we'll probably be here till about 3:15.
Wonderful. So folks are getting the banners ready. As I said, it is a windy day, so getting these banners up and holding them in place is going to be a challenge, to say the least. But if you want to join with the abortion access rally that's taking place this afternoon at 2 o'clock, which is just in a few minutes here, they're going to get started in front of Metro Hall, you are more than welcome to join. We appreciate you. And Erica, thanks so much for giving us a little history and telling us what today is all about. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Sarah.